Hello and welcome to MindVitech London 2023. My name is Alon Sinai. I'm delighted to be joined now by Leila Zegna. Leila is a founding general partner at Kindred Capital. Leila, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
It would be great if you could start off with a short introduction regarding Kindred Capital and your role within the firm.
Absolutely. So I was lucky enough to co-found Kindred Capital 7 or 8 years ago with a few partners. And really what we're trying to do is something radically different in venture capital. And so I think the world back then didn't need another pool of capital. There's plenty of capital to go around, and certainly that's the case now. And so the question we asked is sort of what's missing, and what kind of firm would we have wanted to take money from when we were all founders and operators? And I think we came to the conclusion that a couple of things were really missing in the market. As you may tell from my accent, I'm not from Europe. I'm not from the UK, where we've headquartered the firm. And we all had experiences actually being customers of venture capital, so being entrepreneurs ourselves in different parts of the world, including in Silicon Valley. And I think one thing you realize when you're kind of outside of the European ecosystem is that there's a great number of founders and operators who then come onto the investment side and back that next generation of entrepreneurs. And in Europe, the DNA of venture capitalists was much more investors, kind of career financiers. And the statistic when we set up was less than 5% of the capital had any founding experience on the partnership. Today it's upper single digit percentage,
Okay.
but it's still certainly the minority of capital. So we created a partnership where we were 4 equal partners, very different in terms of age, background, gender, geographic experience, but all of us had that founding experience. And then we further underlined that with our model, which hopefully we'll get to talk about a bit, but we essentially turn every founder we invest in out of the fund into an economic partner in the fund and build this army of kindred spirits.
Yeah, maybe you could elaborate on that model and what do you think the advantages it presents?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, listen, in very mature ecosystems, and again, kind of taking the example of Silicon Valley, you get this extraordinary collision effect where great founders are constantly colliding with other great founders. And there's this density that really pushes everything and fuels everything further. And I think in Europe, it's an incredibly exciting place to be, and both living and investing. But there's the UK, there's the whole European continent, there's Israel, where we've made a number of investments. And so it's just much more emergent, but much more diverse and dispersed. And so our model is really to find, meet the 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 founders every year, to make 8 to 10 really high conviction investments in who we think are the most ambitious seed stage founders building companies across Europe and Israel. And then actually we make them partners in the fund. We give them carry in the fund. We treat them as our 5th partner, so we take 20% of our economics. It's a really significant amount, and we share it with all the founders we invest in. And it's this concept that great people know great people. Great founders actually are in the networks of other great founders, and we essentially simulate that density of extraordinary talent, really ambitious individuals that have this vested interest in each other's success. And we find them, we surround them with each other, we give them ownership in each other's upside, and it's pretty extraordinary what happens from there.
Yeah, and you're seeing obviously this is something which appeals to these different entrepreneurs, specifically Israeli entrepreneurs as well?
Absolutely. I think, listen, the cohort of individual who understands ownership better than anyone in the world is a founder, right? We always say they're all building towards a pot of gold at the end of their rainbow. The idea of equity, of ownership, of shared experience really matters to them. And so I think they immediately get, we explain the model to LPs, to co-investors, but it's always the founders that immediately understand it and immediately grasp the fact that they actually can have this vested interest and this shared experience with other extraordinary founders.
Now we're looking ahead, obviously these are very interesting times, challenging times. How has it affected your investment strategy to date, and how is it looking going forward?
Yeah, so we've always been really fundamentals driven. We just raised our 3rd fund, and we have a slide in our deck that says the market has returned to fundamentals, but we never left them. So it was actually really difficult, I think, to practice our strategy in the heady days of 2020 and 2021. I think for us, these are human capital relationships more than financial capital. We're really early stage. Every fund has been about $100 to $150 million. We make investments of maybe $1 to $4 million when we first get involved in these companies. So it's really about a relationship that you build with them and an ability to support them on this wild and windy road of company building. So we've always been very disciplined in terms of valuation, our in price, our ownership, and then really right-sizing the capital base and the runway and the burn to the stage that the companies are in. So I think we feel quite fortunate actually to have stuck to our guns and not raised huge vehicles and big opportunities funds and built out the team to large numbers of people, which I think is very challenging for many firms in the market today. And we're just excited to continue to do what we've done for the first 2 funds, and we think it's probably the best environment with which to do that.
Leila, that was fascinating. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.